Good morning. Welcome to Salem Live from the Loft. We're glad that you're here with us this morning. I hope you're surviving through the week. This is just a little bit of time to find God together with one another, even though it is electronically. We can't literally see each other face to face. I feel your presence, and I hope you feel my presence in a real way today as we worship together. We're going to start the morning off with a song, so let's not wait. Let's get right into it this morning. Thank you for that opening song. We're going to read our scripture now. And today's reading is taken from the book of Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, 12th chapter.
Because of the extravagance of those revelations, and so I wouldn't get a big head, I was given the gift of a handicap to keep me in constant touch with my limitations. Satan's angel did his best to get me down. What he in fact did was push me to my knees. No danger then of walking around high and mighty. At first, I didn't think of it as a gift, and begged God to remove it. 3 times I did that, and then he told me, "My grace is enough. It's all you need. My strength comes into its own in your weakness." Once I heard that, I was glad to let it happen. I quit focusing on the handicap and began appreciating the gift. It was a case of Christ's strength moving in on my weakness. Now I take limitations in stride, and with good cheer, these limitations that cut me down to size, abuse, accidents, opposition, bad breaks. I just let Christ take over, and so the weaker I get, the stronger I become.
A man came home from work, or came home from looking for a job, and he's been out of work, and his wife asked him, "How did the interview go?" Husband said, I don't think it went very well at all. In fact, it went terrible." "How come?" the wife said. "Well," husband said, "the interviewer asked me what my weakness was, and I told him, my weakness is that I'm brutally honest. And then he said to me, I don't think that's a weakness. And the wife said to him, well, what did you say back? And the man said, I told him I didn't give a damn what he thought. That's not the way you get a job. That's not going to work. This morning, Paul is talking about weakness. He's talking about a weakness he had for many years in his life, and it's lost to us in history. We don't know what it was. We don't know what kind of ailment or what the weakness was, what it even involved, except that it bothered him continually. And he was always asking God to remove it from him time and time again, and nothing ever happened. And he was down, and he was in a dark place about this weakness, this limitation that constantly affected his life. And it was in that darkness that suddenly, somehow, he perceived a voice. And the voice said, "My grace and my kindness are enough. I am the strongest. My power is the greatest when you are weak." And suddenly he hears that voice, and it changes everything. He sees his life in a whole new perspective. He sees where he's at in life in a whole new way. Everything changes. And the reason everything changes is because he's just taken maybe the one most important step in spirituality that you can take: acceptance. He's come to accept what he can't change. He's accepted this condition, and now he has simply said, "I surrender. God, this is something I can't deal with. It's something I can't fix. I've tried and tried again. I give up. And now I'm going to just trust you and trust your grace." He couldn't have even heard those words had he not simply come to that place of acceptance. And the moment he got to that place of accepting that is the moment he came to peace. And it's also the moment he realized he was on the exact journey he was meant to be on, even with that problem that was unresolved. He was on the journey he was meant to be on. This week, I watched a very interesting TED Talk. In between episodes of Tiger King, I try to force myself to watch something educational. And by the way, Tiger King, how off the rails is that show? Woo! Joe Exotic. Anyway, so back to the TED Talk. I watched this artist talk. His name is Phil Hansen. Worth the 10-15 minute TED Talk for you to watch. And Phil Hansen practiced a form of art called pointillism, and it's where you use usually a pencil, but I guess a pen too, but mostly pencil, and you just do art with dots, nothing but dots, thousands and thousands of them, and they're precisely placed and with different shades, and pretty soon, especially from a distance, this beautiful portrait appears. He was kind of the top of his class at that. He was just a phenom at it. It was beautiful stuff. And then as he was getting close to the end of his time in art school, suddenly his hand developed an uncontrollable tremor and shake. He just couldn't put the dots down because his hand was shaking constantly. His whole life he had been working on this form of art, and now it was just taken away from him in the blink of an eye. And he got so discouraged, he quit art school, and he quit art altogether. Went into a dark place. Until he decided finally maybe he would go and see a neurologist. And so he goes to this neurologist, and the neurologist examines him and says, "Look, you have got irreversible nerve damage to your hand." And it really was from the intense concentration and holding of the pencil he'd done all those years doing that form of art. And for a second, Phil's heart sank until he heard the words that his neurologist spoke to him. The next words that neurologist spoke to him were his Paul moment. It was his moment when he heard, "My grace and kindness are enough. I am strongest. My power is greatest when you are weak." Because what the neurologist turned to him and said was, "Embrace the shake. Embrace the shake." And so he suddenly had an epiphany. He saw himself differently in the place he was in. He surrendered to the shake. And he went back and he started doing his pointillism form of art again, but now there were dashes and squiggles and dots all mixed together. It wasn't that neat, precise art he was doing before. It looked a certain way sloppier, but it was still beautiful, and now it was very unique. And it was sellable, and suddenly money was rolling in. And he got so excited, he went out and he bought a ton of art supplies. And he surrounded himself with all these art supplies. He was ready to just take off now creatively, and he hit a creative block. The first night, he could think of nothing. The night after that, he couldn't think of anything. Until weeks passed, and he could not think of a thing to make, to create. He started to get in that dark place again, and then it hit him. Embrace the shake. He thought, maybe if I limit the amount that I can work with, my creativity will come back. And so he decided he would try to do art projects for like under $10. And the first thing he did was get like 50 Starbucks cups for free from Starbucks and penciled this incredible portrait on these cups. And from there, it just took off. He was, building 2x4, putting scrap 2x4s together and using a wood burner and making art this way. He was karate chopping a canvas and making a portrait. He was painting with his feet. He was doing crazy things, and all of them were coming one after another. His creativity blossomed. And then he decided, you know what, I'm going to take this a step further. I'm going to create art that when I'm done with it, it simply disappears, either by me destroying it or by nature. And so he creates, the first thing he does is this portrait of Jimi Hendrix with his guitar in wooden match heads. It looks fantastic. And then he lights it and films it lit. He created sand art. He created chalk art. He tattooed a banana. All of it fantastic. The creativity was exploding. And he said every time that he finished one of these pieces of art that was done when he was done with it, he felt centered and at peace and even more filled with creativity for new ideas. He was a new creation. He was newly alive. And he said it really taught him some lessons about life. It taught him how to let go of insecurities. It taught him how to let go about worrying about failures. It taught him how to let go of feeling like he needed everything to be happy.